Miller Moss wasn't the only one. The Louisville football program received two other commitments out of the portal over the weekend.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Welcome into today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started today. As I mentioned, Miller Moss wasn't the only commitment over the weekend out of the portal. Louisville actually received two commitments on Saturday prior to Moss's pledge. Mississippi State offensive lineman Mak Pounders and Rutgers edge rusher Wesley Bailey. We'll discuss what both will bring to the team. There is a key midweek visit. TCU defensive back Jamel Johnson, really solid season this past year. Versatile defensive back will be on campus. I believe it's Wednesday is the day. And then to conclude the show, we'll dive into the Monday mailbag segment. So one thing that I have tried to reiterate multiple times, and I don't really have to keep saying this because you all are witnessing the same thing that I am, and that is that things are moving at such a rapid pace in the transfer portal, is that you see guys enter the portal, and very rarely is it a long, drawn-out process, like a week, 2 week tops. Because with so many players entering the portal, there's only so many spots to be filled. And when guys make visits, they could end up making commitments the next day. And that's exactly what happened when we had our Friday episode of the show. We talked about two visitors. Well, actually, we talked about a bunch of them, but two of them were guys that committed on Saturday. Mississippi State offensive lineman Mak Pounders and Rutgers edge rusher Wesley Bailey. Like I said, they both committed earlier in the afternoon before Miller Moss gave Jeff Brohm his third portal commitment of the day. But let's discuss both of the other prospects. Makaylan Pounders, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Makaylan, goes by Mac. If I'm saying that wrong, obviously, please forgive me. But he's the third offensive lineman to join the Cardinals in the portal. 6'5", 310 pounds. Jeff Brohm is completely beefing up the offensive line. They got some key guys coming back, and he said, you know what, we're going to have a really strong offensive line next year. Mohamed Musa, Nair Jackson were the two commitments before Pounders, and Pounders made his pledge official on Saturday. Pounders spent the first couple seasons at Memphis, didn't play much as a freshman. Sophomore year in 2022 was able to take a little bit of the step forward. 2023 is where he really was able to break out, allowed 1 sack, 12 pressures, and about 400 pass block situations and 673 total blocking snaps. It prompted a move to Mississippi State, where Pounders is actually from the state of Mississippi. I don't really know how you pronounce his, or Byhalia, Byhalia. Nonetheless, transferred to Mississippi State, started 7 of the 11 games that he appeared in, all at left tackle, which I think is a very interesting spot when you talk about possible fits for the Cardinals. Allowed just 3 sacks and 19 total pressures and 334 pass block snaps and 574 total blocking snaps. And those stats can be contributed to Matt McGavick of Louisville Sports Illustrated. Shout out to General Wasp for those coverage snaps, or I'm sorry, protection snaps. But I really like this commitment for Louisville. I think that not only are you adding a ton of size, 6'5", 310, but he's really good moving laterally, really agile, great job of using his hands. Mississippi State didn't have the greatest year, but he had a pretty respectable year at left tackle. And this makes me think, okay, Musa and Jackson. Jackson is an interior offensive lineman. Musa started out his career when he played for Brohm at tackle, but shifted over to the interior because it seems like, from what I'm gathering, is that that's believed to be where his future would be at the pro level, would be on the interior. Regardless, I think that Musa is a rotational piece. Jackson is possibly the heir to Michael Gonzalez's spot at left guard. Left tackle is up in the air at the moment because right now we're waiting to see if Monroe Mills comes back. If he does, that's going to be key. You would have him potentially for left tackle, or you could slide Monroe Mills over to right tackle and put Mak Pounders at left tackle. We're going through all the hypotheticals here. If Mills doesn't come back, you're going to have a lot of competition for that spot. And if he does come back, it's going to be up to the coaching staff. Do you bolster that left tackle spot, or do you maybe look to move one of these guys over to the other side of the offensive line to give you a good right tackle option? I know Rasheed Miller looked better and better as the season went on, but he had a season-ending injury. I'm not sure if it's going to be something that lingers through the offseason, but again, something to focus on here. And I think that you're giving yourself many options, but at the end of the day, it's a good headache to have. And you're giving yourself depth. Offensive line for Louisville was really good at the end of last year. It almost doesn't get talked about enough because we were loud during the first portion of the season, especially the SMU game, to where the tackle spots were just getting exposed. And then you talked less and less about it as the season went on because the offensive line looked pretty good. They only allowed 15 total sacks in 12 games. They did a really good job at opening up gaps for the running backs. So to return a couple pieces in the starting lineup and also to address the offensive line through the portal, I really like this addition. You bring in an SEC caliber or an SEC proven lineman, I should say, and he's able to step in as a veteran. One more season left, I believe. Maybe two. No, it's got to be one. It's got to be one season left. But still, good veteran option for the offensive line. The other player that Louisville got a commitment from was Wesley Bailey, 6'5", 265 pounds from Ottawa, Ontario. The Canadian ended up deciding to play his college ball at Rutgers. First year in 2021 wasn't the greatest year. The next two seasons, pretty respectable, 28 tackles in 22, 25 and 23, had 3.5 sacks his redshirt freshman year, 4 sacks the year after that. This year, only had 9 tackles, 1 sack, appeared in 4 games. I don't know. It was looks like it was September 21st, the 27th, October 5th, and October 12th. I'm not sure what was the reason behind the issues there. I don't know why he didn't really play all that much. All I know is there was some hype for him to maybe be an all Big Ten type guy this season, and obviously that just didn't end up coming to fruition. So I'm not really sure exactly what the issue was. It looks like, okay, I'm reading an article from Chris Eisman from app.com, and he basically says Bailey was limited to 3 games because of an injury. So that would make sense. It looks like this is going to be a piece that, Jeff Brohm is just completely buying in on the skill set. It's not the situation to where his former teammate Rene Conga didn't have, over 10 tackles in any season coming into his Louisville career and had a really good year last year. And Wesley Bailey, I think, has more production and plays a different position on the edge. 6'5", 265 pounds. I would almost think that he's going to slide into like the Gelati role. I'm not sure if he's going to be a starter, but you need guys at the edge spot. Louisville needs depth there. The depth is just not there at the moment. You are able to bring in a player that has had some success as a rotational piece in the Big Ten. So, with his twitch, with his size, being able to defend the run, but also to get after the pass rusher, I'm hopeful that, at the very least, you're adding a player that can contribute in the two deep. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Cardinals now address not only the edge spot as a defensive end, the traditional defensive end, but also the card spot on the other side as the outside linebacker. So I like this commitment. I think that Bailey has the potential to be really good for this team, and he has the redshirt season. So I'm looking at this, looking at, how many seasons he would have eligible, and I'm thinking, and this could be huge if true, it looks like he very well could have 2 seasons of eligibility over the next 2 years, which would be obviously huge for the Cardinals having that continuity at that edge spot. So I like this commitment for Louisville. One of the spots on the defense, obviously edge is key, but Louisville desperately needs help in the defensive backfield. The secondary is just depleted from the departures. They have a key midweek visitor. Jamel Johnson will be on campus from TCU, and he is a player that I would really like to see Louisville land. We'll discuss when we come back on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, I don't know about you all, but all throughout this season, I've been able to take advantage of all the benefits over at FanDuel. When I downloaded the app, it was a game changer because it allowed me to get into live betting, which was a sector of betting that I'd never really been comfortable with because of how quickly, you have to make some pretty impulsive decisions. However, FanDuel makes it convenient. It keeps it organized and easy to understand. And if you need any more convincing, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. All you have to do, go to FanDuel.com to get started. Once again, $100 or $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. For all the everydayers out there, I do want to take the time to thank you all again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. I'll let you in on a little bit of one of my goals. Back in September, one of my goals for the remainder of 2024 was to eclipse the 3,000 YouTube subscriber mark. And I'm really fortunate and appreciative to tell you all that we passed that mark in late November. And currently we're on our way to 3,150. And that means a lot to me. Thank you all again for subscribing, liking, sharing the podcast on whatever streaming service you utilize. So it definitely does not go unnoticed nor unappreciated. But continuing on along, we mentioned how important it is that Louisville addresses the pass rusher spot this offseason in the portal, at both the pass rusher spots, the edge at defensive end and also as the outside linebacker. But the secondary is depleted. And it's not really the fault of Louisville because you had some veterans. Quincy Riley was back for one more year, and now he's going to the league. Corey Thornton doesn't have any eligibility left. Taz Nicholson, Tamari McDonald, both of those guys don't have any eligibility left. MJ Griffin is gone. Same thing there, going to the NFL. I don't know the situation with Tay Holloway. People have asked me, but truthfully, I don't really feel comfortable commenting on it because I don't know anything about it. So I know what the allegations are, and I've read the articles, but I'm not going to speak on it until we have more information on it. So Aaron Williams, this one sucked. I was really hopeful that Aaron Williams was going to stay because I thought that he was going to be really good at this level and just had some injuries that he had dealt with. But Louisville has to build up this secondary. Theron Johnson, I was hoping that the Northwestern defensive back, when he made his visit to campus last week, I was hoping that was going to turn into a commitment, but He ended up going to Oregon. So Louisville now has, pivoted, and they are hosting a versatile defensive back, Jamel Johnson. Jamel Johnson can play a couple different spots on the defense. 6'1", 200 pounds from Arlington, Texas. In his second season with the program, 71 total tackles, 1 forced fumble. He had 3 pass deflections. This was a breakout year for him. Last year, he had 19 total tackles and ended up obviously upping that number to 71, which is pretty solid. 6'1", can play a couple different positions. Like I mentioned, either at safety, out in center field, potentially at the star spot where Ben Perry, who just committed to UCLA, where he might end up at, and also maybe as a cornerback. So I really am intrigued with this. I think that this is a guy that, by all means, you get him to commit, and then you figure out where he's going to go or where he's going to play after that. He was a really highly rated player coming out of high school in the 2023 class. 4-star player, originally a safety, 6'1", obviously 185. Yeah, it looks like he's gained 200 pounds. I'm going to read you this evaluation. This was from a couple years ago. It's from Cooper Patagna, national recruiting analyst from 24/7 Sports. It kind of gives you a little bit more of a idea on his skill set. Ideal size and length at 6 foot plus, possesses growth potential to add additional weight to frame, which he has done. Displays good athleticism on both sides of the ball. Reactionary athlete that shows the ability to transition in and out of breaks quickly. Utilizes length well in press coverage and at the point of attack. I definitely agree with those. Could potentially develop into a safety at the next level, depending on scheme. Has the ability to contribute early on special teams. Cooper, back in October of 2021, projected him as a power 4 starter, which, spoiler alert, he ended up becoming just that. I think that his ball skills when it comes to being able to just find the football, it's pretty incredible. Now, TCU didn't have the greatest year, right? I mean, that goes without saying. But I felt like when you watch him play, I'm really impressed with his ability to stop the run. And that's something that Louisville has had in the past, is those outside linebacker safety hybrids. Like, it would not surprise me if Jamel Johnson is a potential starter at the star spot next year. Or he could be in that MJ Griffin role out in center field. I think that, versatility, he can do a couple different things, so you don't have to put him into a box. So could he be this year or next year's Tamari McDonald? I think that that's a pretty good comparison there. Both of the guys coming to Louisville had the production. Now Johnson didn't play in the SEC like Tamari McDonald did, but both, larger defensive backs that have shown the ability to defend the run, but also excel in coverage. So I don't think he's going to be an outside cornerback. Somebody had asked me, do you think he could be a guy that plays the boundary? Probably not. But Louisville needs safety help as well. So again, you're not going to fill the depth in the secondary overnight. You're going to have to get multiple guys. Like, I'm really hoping that Louisville can land Jordan Matthews, the cornerback from Tennessee that didn't get much playing time over the past couple of years, but the talent is just off the charts. There's a couple other players that I would like to see Louisville get involved with in the portal. So you best believe that this is a position that Brohm and company are going to hammer home when it comes to recruiting. There was an interesting point made up, and someone had mentioned the idea in the Discord that Louisville hasn't really kicked things into gear with defensive recruiting because they're going to let Ron English go in January. I thought that was pretty interesting. I haven't heard it one way or the other. I was almost under the impression that he was definitely not going to be back, but after the performances against Kentucky and Pittsburgh, maybe Brohm had a change of heart, but it's all intuition for me. I'm not speaking from any spot of in the know. So could they end up letting him go after the bowl game on December 30th? I mean, yeah, I guess it's a possibility, but I don't really know how to think, in terms of that. I don't really know what to think about that. So I guess we'll see. The only thing we'll have to focus on is whether or not Louisville does make a change. And at this point, on December 16th, we haven't seen one yet. So it is something that we have to monitor moving forward. I feel like a broken record when I say this. Like, we have to monitor this. We have to keep an eye out on this. It's something to focus on. It is. I mean, a lot of these things you just have to, keep a close eye on, keep tabs on, because with everything moving so quickly in the portal, things get lost in translation. You have to, stay on top of the ball. So, but there are going to be some more visitors throughout the week. When we come back on tomorrow's show, we are going to discuss more visitors for the midweek and toward the end of the week. But when we come back on the final segment of this show, we're going to dive into the Monday mailbag. There's some great questions that I want to answer. And truthfully, some of these made me think. Like, I was sitting there before the episode, just kind of just dumbfounded in terms of what the answer, or what I thought the answer should be. Stay tuned to hear what those questions are coming up on the final segment of Locked on Louisville. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back with the newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be larger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. I mentioned that some of these questions, like, you all stumped me with some of these questions, and I'll give it to you. I feel like since we introduced the mailbags, like, I used to get softball questions, like just tossing up a softball, and it was like a one-word answer, like yes or no. It wasn't really all that thought-provoking. First question is, what is the most important position that the Cardinals should prioritize since the quarterback spot has been filled? I went back and forth. And it's two that we've talked about: the edge spot, and I'll say cornerback. The edge spot right now, because you have lost Ashton Gelati, a multiple-year starter. You have some guys coming back, Adonijah Green and company, but nobody that's really been able to, be able to surface as regular contributors. Mason Reiger, who you were hoping to get back from injury, ended up entering the portal. He's now going to be a Wisconsin Badger. Louisville needs pass rush. They need it really badly. But they also need defensive backs, especially cornerbacks, because you don't have that many right now. Like, you lose basically your whole starting lineup at the edge spots. You might be able to return, your starting outside linebacker, but you lose all your cornerbacks. So I'm going to go cornerback here. And I think partially I'm going to, take a cop out. You got a commitment from Wesley Bailey. So right now, cornerback is a spot with very little depth. It is a spot that you're going to have to address a ton. I'm talking about more than 3. I mean, maybe even 5 guys at the cornerback spot. You're going to be, adding a ton of players into that, portal class. With the strength of schedule argument being made, should Louisville cancel their home-and-home series with Georgia coming up starting in 2026? Very good question. The competitor in me is saying, no way can you do that, because we are we have been teeing off on Indiana for doing that this year. We would be very hypocritical to do that in 2026 against Georgia. Now, they will have the Bulldogs at L&N Stadium in 2026. They go to Athens in 2027, and you can even go further beyond that argument because 2028, you're playing at Texas A&M. And then 2029, they will be coming here. So, like, the prideful Louisville fan says, no way. The opportunistic Louisville fan, one that wants to see his team make the college football playoff, knowing that Georgia is going to be a very, very tough team to play, regardless if you play in Louisville, I kind of want to say, yeah, let's go ahead and, if we have to cancel against Louisville and schedule another Power 4 team or cancel against Georgia, I'm sorry, and schedule a team that's, not a perennial championship contender, maybe then you have a conversation. But at this point, the committee has shown, at least early on in the 12-team playoff, that they value wins and losses over strength of schedule. I'd cancel it. That's just me. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and fault you for suggesting otherwise. Like if you are squarely on the side of, no, we're gonna make sure that we schedule tough teams and play them like we always have. I respect it. I mean, I hope we win, of course, but I probably just disagree. So, do you feel like Louisville could lose Colin Lacey or Chris Bell if the Cardinals were to bring in a possible wide receiver 1 type receiver? Good question. Colin Lacey, I don't think so. I do think that could be the case with a guy like Chris Bell, but I'm not naive enough to know that there's a chance that if Louisville convinces Chris Bell to come back, and I've been told that, there was a shift. It seemed like the word was that he was going to enter the portal, and now it seems like he's going to stay. If you bring in a guy that could take a share of those targets from either one of those two, I mean, there is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that, either one of those guys is for sure, like that's what they're going to do, but you've seen it happen across college sports. So it just, that's where it's really up to Jeff Brohm to be able to sell the vision. And not only is that selling the vision to the players you're trying to bring in, but it's also, you could make a case, it's equally important to be able to sell that vision to the players you have returning. So that's kind of where I sit on the matter. You talked about Miller Moss in your last episode as seemingly the QB1 already. Why are you overlooking guys like Pierce Clarkson, Harrison Bailey, and Deuce Adams? From a technical standpoint, every guy returning will have a chance to win this job in the spring and in fall camp. Like, you will have the chance. Now, Miller Moss probably is going to be the QB1 going into the spring, but he's going to have to win the job. I've seen this opinion and this take a lot over the past couple of years. We had it when they brought Tyler Shuck in. And my rebuttal and my response to it is pretty simply this. Jeff Brohm sees these quarterbacks every single day in practice. And if you felt the need to go to the portal and get one of the top transfer portal quarterbacks to come to Louisville, then I think that is an indication on how Brohm feels about the room. Truthfully, I think Deuce Adams is the quarterback of the future. I think he just needs another year. So I think that this fits the timeline really well. I mean, we'll see these quarterbacks in action in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl here coming up in about 2 weeks. So we'll pay attention then. That's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.